Hey, it's Cliff, and this is UNAJUA, where we bring you crowdsourced minimum actionable responses to important questions in 15 minutes or less. This is the second episode of a 3-part series focused on what sets blockchains apart from each other. Insights come courtesy of Kenyan blockchain developer and Web3 builder, Jordan Muthemba. But before we get stuck in, if you haven't listened to our storytelling feature titled Rom, the Babusi Nyoni story, you definitely should. This heartfelt piece of storytelling will leave you enlightened and inspired. Listen via your preferred podcast hosting platform or check it out at africantechroundup.com. And thanks again to the Celo Community Fund for their support for our ongoing season of blockchain-themed learning content. To learn more about them and their mission to build a financial system that creates the conditions for prosperity for everyone, visit www.celo.org. On this podcast, Jordan Muthemba goes in on some technical jargon by answering the question, what are proof of work and proof of stake? All right, here he is.
So we've talked about consensus mechanism, and there is a lot of different consensus mechanism, and the most common consensus mechanism is proof of work and proof of stake. So before we do proof of work, we need to kind of define what is a consensus mechanism. And a consensus mechanism is a way that you, as an organization, basically from the organization perspective, how do you come to a conclusion or how do you come to an agreement that this is the way as an organization you will be able to go, so that every department is in harmony. You are working towards the same objective. So different blockchains have the same way algorithmically, or algorithms which are used to make the blockchain work in the same direction. So we have the two major or the most popular consensus mechanism for different blockchain, and this is what you can be able to kind of look at in depth as a developer or as a person who want to build on different blockchain, and that is proof of work and proof of stake. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the early blockchains which were developed normally use proof of work, and we have seen how proof of work have turned out on the Ethereum blockchain with high gas fees and the foundation of the Ethereum organization deciding to move from proof of work to proof of stake. So I'll explain on that and why. So proof of work, normally abbreviated as POW, is a common consensus algorithm used by the most popular blockchain networks like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, which requires participant node to prove that the work done and submitted by them qualifies them to receive the right to add a new transaction to the blockchain. So, however, this whole mining mechanism of Bitcoin or Ethereum needs high energy consumption and longer processing time. So we've talked about when you want to become a miner, you really kind of need to have sophisticated machines. You need rigs to do the mining. You need stable power to do the mining. You really have to have invested a lot so that you can be able to do the mining in proof of work, and so that you can be able to solve the mathematical puzzle within that, so that you can be able to add a new transaction to the blockchain. So that is some of the shortcomings of proof of work. And also there is the possibility of like 51% attack, which is when a lot of machines having like all the power and now like define the consensus mechanism. But there are some measures which have been made to prevent such from happening. Then we have proof of stake consensus mechanism. So that is mostly Bitcoin, Ethereum, and some different layers. So proof of stake emerged as a concept. Before it was theoretical, but it has been proven by different blockchains that it works and it actually better and it doesn't use a lot of fuel energy. So basically proof of stake concept states that a person can mine or validate block transaction according to how many coins they hold. So this means that the more coins owned by a miner, the more mining power they have, but the reward is also the same as to what they have been able to stake. So if they do validate or try to add an invalidated block or transaction, they are at the risk of losing their coins. So the proof of stake was created as an alternative to the proof of work concept to tackle the inherent issues that I've just talked about. That is the power consumption, complicated setup for people who want to kind of join and be part of the node, and high gas fees and issues like that. So currently only altcoins use the proof of stake concept, and also some layer 1 like Celo, which is a layer 1 blockchain, and Polkadot, and I think Solana, they are using proof of stake, and you can be able to see there is a reduction in terms of gas fee and the amount of time taken for a transaction to be completed. So if you have ever interacted with Ethereum and the proof of stake protocol blockchains, you can be able to see that the transaction time and the amount of gas fee used in proof of stake blockchain, the transaction fees are less. So I'll just give a slight explanation of how the transactions are initiated. When a transaction is initiated, the transaction data is fitted into a block with a maximum of capacity of 1 megabyte and then duplicated across multiple computers or nodes. So these nodes are administrative body of the blockchain, and they verify the legitimacy of the transaction, whether we all know how the transaction in blockchain occurs. So you have to check whether the transaction is legit and confirm whether the said coins are available in the wallet. So that's the work of the node validators. You can think of them as cashiers in a bank who validate whether your bank account has cash. But now these nodes are machines. So to carry out the verification step, the nodes or miners would need to solve a computational puzzle. So that is on the proof of work. They have to solve a computational puzzle known as proof of work. But now when it comes to proof of stake seeks to address that issue by attributing mining power to proportion of the coin held by a miner. In this way, instead of utilizing the energy to answer, you remember the rigs used for mining, they use a lot of energy. Now, instead of using those rigs to kind of help in the solving of the puzzle or the mathematical puzzle, these miners don't have to use power because you just have to stake your coins. So miner is limited to mining a percentage of transaction that is reflective of the ownership of stake. For example, let's say if I'm a miner and I own 3% of the coin and I've staked them, I should be able to mine 3% of the block. So I don't have to mine or to validate a whole lot of transaction. I just need to validate and do 3% of what I've owned. So if I have 10, then I'll have 10% of the block. So proof of stake has a lot of advantages, but still there is a big problem, that is on if I own a lot of coins, then it means if I stake all those coins, then it means I can be able now to control the entire blockchain. So that now leads us to another kind of consensus mechanism called delegated proof of stake. And before we do the delegated proof of stake, we have incentives and disincentives in proof of stake. So as a way to keep validators from acting maliciously or adding fraudulent transaction into the block, validators are incentivized from the amount of coin they have staked, and also they are disincentivized. So if they try to add a fraudulent transaction, their coin will be removed from the blockchain and they will stand a chance to lose the coins they have staked.
On the next installment of this UNAJUA series, Jordan Muthemba will close out the series by demystifying a third important proof of consensus mechanism called delegated proof of stake. Make sure you don't miss it. In the meantime, remember to click on the UNAJUA link in the show notes wherever you're listening, or click on the microphone icon on the right-hand side of your screen if you're listening from the africantechroundup.com website to leave us a 60-second voice note reacting to this episode. You can also tweet us your thoughts using the hashtag UNAJUA series, or leave us a DM at African Roundup. But that's it for now. Thanks a lot for listening. Till next time, take it easy, Africa.